we're sitting in a coffee shop in Queen Street West in Toronto for our latest Startoon Cartoon Podcast, and I'm lucky enough to have a friend of mine, Tabitha Fisher, with me here today. We want to talk about life drawing. That's where we start. I guarantee you we're going to go a few different places. But Tabitha, thank you for joining us. Why don't you do a quick intro to the camera and tell us who you are, what you do, and then we'll get into the real meat.
Sure. All right. I'm Tabitha Fisher, and I work in animation. I've been working for over 10 years in animation, and on my own time, I do a lot of drawing in my sketchbook, where I travel all around the city. Sometimes I go to other cities, and I just try to capture like the moment of like an interesting moment in my sketchbook.
Give me the secret origin story. Where you're from? What do you do? Like, what's how you came to this?
I don't remember a time where I didn't draw. My family is somewhat artistic, so I have some people in film, some people who are painters, writers. So it's definitely was not something unusual in my family. And my aunt gave me one of my very first sketchbooks, and I still have it. I was 4 years old, and I was drawing some wild, out there stuff. So like, just experimenting, like making weird worlds and things like this. Thinking narratively, though, which was interesting for somebody that young.
At 4,
yeah, it was like 4 or 5. Like it was, and you can see, it's so interesting to go back to old sketchbooks because you can often see that it's still you. Mm-hmm. So that I find fascinating.
What do your parents do?
Well, my mom, she was closed caption editor.
Okay.
And then my dad was like he did odd jobs, but they're not together. Like I guess it's my grandpa was a filmmaker, like a director, and my aunt was a painter. And so I have like some writers and stuff like that in my life, but in terms of pinpointing a moment of realization, I don't really have that, which I find so strange because people do ask me. There was no moment, like I think it was the combination of my aunt's influence, drawing, like drawing with me and stuff like that, and then my grandpa's just knowing that he worked in film. It's like those two things kind of go right into animation. So I think that's how that happened. I didn't have anybody in animation, like working in animation that I even knew. I just, like there was no moment where I said, I want to do that. I didn't look at the screen and go, I want to do that, or have a realization that was a job. I just kind of always knew it was a job. I did go through a period where I was in denial because everybody was telling me I was going to be an artist. Okay. So around like 8 or 9 years old, it was just a little stubborn. And you're like, no, I want to be like an English teacher or something like that.
That was your rebellion?
Yeah, well, kind of. Like it was bizarre.
At 8 was your rebellious stage and you wanted to be an English teacher?
Well, yeah, but I didn't really want to. It was more like I have another side of me where I love teaching as well. So that's funny because I don't think that came from nowhere either. Yeah. If I said I want to be a physicist, that's probably I pulled that out of the air or something. But yeah, like it's so strange. Like I can't pinpoint a moment.
So more just the chronology of your career in terms of those steps. Kid who draws. Mm-hmm. Art classes in high school, I'm sure, all that kind of stuff.
I did art classes in middle school, which is, just on my own. Like I thought, okay, I told my mom, I was like, I would really love to try out some classes. And I had like my first formalized art teacher in like on weekends, on Saturdays when I was in middle school.
Cool. Yeah. Cool. And you said like animation was never like, it was like you weren't a cartoon person. Like you like probably a kid like any kid who sort of
I was like in middle school, I was so into anime.
Oh, were you?
Oh God!
You were
like
an anime?
Cosplay, really? Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
I would not. I mean, okay. Well, I'm not going to say it. Keep going. No, I'm curious.
I was so into it.
Because I don't see any of that in what you do.
No.
I don't see any of that in what you do.
I lived many lives.
But some people wear that forever.
No.
You know, I'm still drawing the same shit. Yeah. Like, but that's not evident in your work. That's hilarious. So you were. Because you're just that right age too.
Like hardcore.
So what was it? What were the shows?
Oh God, like loving the Cardcaptor Sakura, loving Final Fantasy. Like totally into like I love Clamp, like the manga collective Clamp. this is really nerdy, man.
No, that's awesome.
Anyway.
You're beyond me.
Oh,
So it's
yeah, yeah. No, I was into it. I was on forums. I was writing fan fiction. So into that.
great. Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I
And
even
so,
like
and the cosplay?
Yeah, cosplay. Like Selphie. I was Selphie from Final Fantasy VIII. I know that's not a great game. That's kind of embarrassing, but it was her Seed outfit, which was her high school uniform, which was like ultra specific. Like it was the specificity. So yeah, yep, I have that still.
Okay, cool.
Just it's dusty.
I had no idea.
I'm not gonna say I busted out anytime, but I mean homemade, Value Village, yeah.
But like that's a whole world that has become like. 'Cause, I mean, I'm trying to situate. Oh, we have more coffee. We have more coffee. Okay, coffee's good.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So you haven't had one of these yet?
No, I haven't.
Thank you very much, man. Give me a here. Give the plug. The Cortado at El Almacen on Queen Street West at Dovercourt is a little piece of joy in my life. When I first moved to town, I was right around the corner and I found this place. And I was not much of a coffee drinker. I kind of learned, but I got spoiled right out of the gates. So a little bit of sugar. Well, for me, it's a lot of sugar. A sweet tooth. And they do it with a little bit of some seltzer water too. Because it's like the traditional Argentinian. Now, say some people it's to cleanse the palate before you drink it. Some people it's to cleanse the palate after.
Yeah, you could mix it up. You can do both.
I like to mix it up.
Yeah.
I like to have it between sips and kind of get so you get a fresh that first sip every time.
Yeah. Oh, all right.
Okay.
I'm not into the sugar. I just
That's
straight
okay.
up,
That's
man.
okay. Go for it. Go for
All
it.
right. That's good stuff. Good pick. Good pick.
Yeah. So, where were we?
We were geeking out on
Yeah,
the anime.
right. Okay, yeah. So but the cosplay thing, because that's also. I mean, certainly that didn't exist when I was a kid.
Yeah.
You're probably just the right age where it was just coming out of the.
It was just the
closet,
beginning
kinda.
to the point where like Silver Snail, you go. So for those who aren't from Toronto, it's a really well-known comic store. Silver Snail had a single shelf. There was this wide of manga, and that's it. Like it was maybe 40 manga, and probably like the separate series. There was like 6 different series, and that's it. So you go there, and you're like, and each book was like $40. Like it was really expensive. And or if you want the videos, you'll have to go to HMV. RIP, love you. So you go to HMV and you buy the VHS for like $45, like for a single VHS.
Commitment.
And like I have like the whole first season of Slayers, and that bloody thing is worth like $350. Like I spent on this like weird, like sort of mediocre anime show because there weren't a lot available. It was like 4 different shows available. So and then I will go to in Chinatown. There's the Chinatown Mall, and you go in there, and they have like Kikiwai is a shop. I don't know if it still exists, but they had like stuff imported from Japan, so you could get your like action figures and all that stuff. So I was like,
so you knew where to go.
I knew the haunts.
These are the advantages of being in a city like Toronto at that time, is that you could find this stuff.
Yeah, but it was word of mouth. Like it was not something you could find online. So, it was.
And then the cosplay stuff that's become a whole lifestyle now. It's completely out of the closet essentially. Like it's because it was. I mean, when I was a kid, you could still get beat up for being a comic book person. And that's just not the case anymore. As they say, the geeks have taken over, and now we have these conventions that are. I mean, I can't even go because it's just so crushing.
It's so like I went to some of the first years of the conventions there, and it was definitely like way more low key. Like I could never do it now, and I don't think I'd want to because it was like it felt more like of a secret little thing. I don't know. Like part of that was appealing, but it being so mainstream, it's like I've kind of.
This is the contrarian and you kicking me
again.
again.
Yeah, that's it. I always am questioning constantly everything. Yeah, exactly.
Now it's done.
Yeah, I know.
It's
It's like what a like elitist.
Yeah, you've moved beyond it now.
Yeah, and there's still an animator. Like really, come on, how cool is that?
That's hilarious.
But yeah, it's just one of those things that I got really into, and I did go to an arts high school. So like the great thing about my high school is people didn't tend to bully each other. It was like the refuge for the children who were all
daughter
bullied.
goes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she's there.
Yeah,
She's
so
in
it's
grade 10. She's in
as
grade
good
10.
as I remember. Yeah.
She the first year was kind of rough for her in terms of like just because she came to drawing a little bit late.
Yeah.
And she'll probably kill me for talking about it. But I hear that from a lot of people. I had some other friends who went when they said that, like it took them a while to get into it and understand it, and like this one guy I know just spent his first 2 years there just in the stairwell drawing all by himself before he kind of really felt that he was part of it. And she's doing great. She's grade 10 and she's got a good group of friends, but I go crazy. I love it. Like I want to go back in time and go myself.
Oh, it's so good. It's amazing. And
I
they
follow
had
them on
Lady
Instagram.
Gaga like made some special video a couple of years ago that was like calling out the school, and they played it in the auditorium. It was like Lady Gaga's like, "Hi, ESA." But there's a rivalry with them in the Catholic school next door.
Next door. So I follow them on Instagram.
Oh, I didn't know they had Instagram.
They have a couple different Instagrams. So I follow the ESA art Instagram,
That's
and
so
I I'm always hoping I'm going to see her in a picture or see one of her pieces in a picture.
Yeah.
And I told her one day, I was like, it's going to be like the proudest fucking day of my life when I see you or I see something you're working on in that. So a couple weeks ago, or maybe a month or two ago, also she was like, I get this text and it's like, have you checked the ESA Instagram today? I'm like. And I'm writing back. I'm like, yeah, because it's like there's a corner of her painting, and she's over here.
Nice.
And the next time it was like there was a full like so. It's but that sense of arrival, and it's a sense of arrival for her. And again, I'm saying she's probably not going to want me to say any of this shit. But it's a really nurturing environment. It's amazing what they do, and the ones that do latch on to art as a potential career. They're going off and like they're already ready for it almost coming out of there in terms of a lifestyle. Yeah. So, like I wish I went to a private school in Ottawa and we had a decent art program. Yeah. But there was Canterbury in Ottawa, which is the art school, and I look back, it's like, oh man, like if I had known, if I had that kind of wherewithal to motivate myself to do something different than sort of what was just the plan, I would have been at Canterbury. And I don't even know what that would be like to have that kind of environment in those years. Yeah. It's gotta, like, it has to have just, I mean, you've got the artistic family, you've got that, there's just, you were doomed. This is all you were ever gonna do, right?
Yeah, pretty much. That's why, like, there was no moment of realization for me. It's just always, but though, to be said, it's important to say, they never told me to do it either. Like, nobody ever told me to. It was still my own authority. I decided I wanted. Yeah,
it came from a real place, but no one ever told you you couldn't.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes, though, like, depending on the person, like, if you come from a more artistic family, you might just feel like, oh, it will just happen for me. So I think it's always important to check in, make sure that you're not resting on your laurels. Yeah. But I always love to try new stuff all the time, and that's like a big part of it. I was introduced to drawing from life in high school, and I went to a Etobicoke School of the Arts as a visual arts major. So it was halfway through that program was when they introduced you to life drawing. And like I really liked it, but it didn't seal the deal for me per se. I was more into my own illustrations. But then when I went to Max the Mutt, they have a very strong focus on life drawing. Like that's one of the core foundations of the whole program is having a strong background in traditional arts. So I had some amazing teachers at Max the Mutt, but I would credit probably my passion from my teacher Ed Shawcross, who, for anybody who went to Max the Mutt, he is like adored. Like he's beloved. And yeah, he's just so interesting, and like he lives and breathes it. So I'd say that will be my moment where life drawing, I saw it as, oh, this could be more than just practice for the studio or something, or like practice for your other endeavors. It can be the practice. So I'd say if that was a moment of switch over in my brain, that would be that moment. Okay.
Did he impart specific philosophy, theory behind it? Was there did you get this from him?
Partially his passion for just drawing in general. Like, he's a very charismatic person. Part of it was also the curriculum too. So that particular course is based on, there's this like Nicolaides, The Natural Way to Draw. That's like a classic drawing book. So a large part of what you do in that particular program is based on this book. There's several other books that are really great too, that the curriculum was based around. But it's just this idea of like taking risks and like liberating yourself, like freeing yourself, and once you do that, that translates into better drawing. And it's kind of like feels a little zen. And like all that is interesting. And I have like a bit of a martial arts background too.
Really?
So that, yeah.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, I did like Goju karate for like 7 years.
So you can kick my ass.
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just flip everything right now. So that's something that I'm interested in as well. And like, again, going back to the family, like my grandpa was interested in like meditation and stuff like that. And I think a lot of artistic people are, because it just gets you more in tune with what's going on inside. I find, I guess, studio drawing definitely has its place, and it's the traditional way of learning about anatomy. I think that's all super important because you do have to understand the structure of the figure. But I find it's an artificial scenario that you're drawing from. And when you're out in the world, you have no control. But when you're drawing, you don't really have control, or shouldn't be obsessing over control, because that makes a stiff line, I find.
Okay.
So it's all about searching for how to get the most fluid line. So that's really important to me.
Well, I mean, there are some realities to drawing out in the world. No one's going to sit for a 30-minute pose.
No.
I mean, you could luck out and find someone reading in a corner.
Yeah.
But you got to be fast.
Yeah, because they can move.
Yeah.
It's like being in the jungle.
That's the chaos thing you're talking about.
I love it. Yeah, that's the thing that gets you fired up.
So where do you draw?
I draw many places. So cafes. This is a funny thing. I've drawn here before. Nice. So good pick, location. When I first started on this, it was like I said, it came from school. So in school, I started experimenting. They had the requirement of filling several pages of your sketchbook every week, and that was like your homework. So I'm going around and I'm like realizing, hey, I'm really digging this. This is really cool. So I started like really getting into the figure. I've still seen it as figure drawing. And then after I graduated and I was a couple of years of working, I had this other teacher that I ended up like being friends with after, Rudolf Stussy, who is an amazing fine art painter, like very surreal, like, and he also came from animation, like he's been art director on shows and stuff like that, but he's now focused more, he transitioned out of animation to focus on his fine art. And I was at his house one time. I was I've shown him the sketchbook. There's some birthday party, and he was looking at it. And he went, "You know what, Tabitha? Like, if these, like, I just wish these had backgrounds in the drawings." And something clicked, and I went, this can be more than just the study of figures.
It's not just the figure,
It's not about the figures. The figures are a part of the puzzle, but it's not about the figures. It's about what's happening. It's answering the question. I'm looking at something in front of me, I'm absorbing it. What's happening? How do I translate it into the paper? So it's more like I see it as like a really fast illustration.
It's interesting. So that's really cool. I just drew superheroes. That was always my thing. I was drawing superheroes. And I remember taking a sketchbook to a comic shop in Ottawa because John Romita, who drew Spider-Man through the 70s, and he was like the art director at Marvel, was going to be there. And I brought it to him. I brought him my sketchbook. And I must have been like 13 probably. And he was really giving of his time, really sweet, awesome guy. And he said, like, yeah, you can draw good superheroes. These are really good. Now his son is a really successful comic book artist, and one of my, John Romita Jr. is a really, I mean, I think he's phenomenal. But he said he used to, every time his son would bring him a superhero, it's like, you can draw superhero, that's great. Now draw me 3 regular things. 3 lamp, like a lamp, this and that and that.
Yeah.
And I fought that very thing you're talking about, that like situating it in a world, situating that figure in a place and making it real. And it wasn't until even, because I don't draw for a living anymore, and it was after having done a couple years in animation where I had to draw everything, but then it was a hobby drawing thing I used to do, a warm-up drawing thing, which is this little bear character that was kind of me, and I would draw a scene on a Post-it every morning, and it was just sort of like an autobiographical thing. And all of a sudden I was telling a story, placing this character in a world, and his feet had to be firmly planted, and his ass had to be firm, whatever it was, and it cracked. You know, it was a moment of, like, it was this unsubstantial thing I thought I was doing, and it taught me more than anything I'd learned in 10 years in terms of like storytelling and world, and there was a whole, it went beyond the figure. It isn't just anatomy. You've got that. Yeah.
And you can go practice at the studio. You can pay $20 and go sit for
Do you still
3
do that?
hours. Not as much as I used to.
You
Like,
gotta
I would
think.
like to do it though.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's good to pop in and do that. And like, I don't want to disparage that, because that's a separate thing. And it's valuable. Like, let's say you're interested in really studying the human figure, so you can do like this big painting of like an epic, like battle or something like that, like a big fine art painting. And like from your mind's eye, you want to create figures, and you want them anatomically correct and fluid and everything. Then for sure, like, but just, I found myself a little bit bored with the superficiality of it. I love it though. Like, I love, like, you know, still life and things like that is interesting, but I don't get fired up over it. It's more like a pleasant like, is how I describe some of those things. Like,
so,
it's interesting intellectually, but when you're drawing from life, you can't be intellectual anymore.
So that's it. So I contacted you because I wanted to talk about life drawing. What you do is drawing from life. Where you get your joy is, it's not life drawing, it's drawing from life.
Yeah.
Because it's not figure drawing at all what you're doing.
No.
You're capturing something.
No. It doesn't even look like the person sometimes. So there is the several years ago, I was between contracts, and I just went to Paris for a month by myself. I got an apartment and drew. And this was after like a particularly like fast-paced kind of show I was on, and so I just needed this break to do my own thing. I was drawing in this restaurant, and some of the cooks like noticed, the server like told the cooks and stuff, and I was like, I stay for a while. I keep buying stuff because that's like a great way to like buy your space. Just keep throwing money at them, and then they'll be cool with it. But anyway, then after the service was over, like the cooks came over, and they were looking at like this one drawing, and the cook was like, wow, this is like, it doesn't look like Marie, it feels like Marie. And that was like, cool. Yeah. That's a neat thing.
Yeah, you're
like,
getting
it's really cool. Because it's like, the way I draw is like figures, I'm not noticing, like I look at somebody and I see there's something about it that grabs me. Maybe they'll have like some sort of hair or whatever that's interesting, the way it's falling, or some like a beard, or there's something, the way the hat is tilted, like something grabs you to begin with, but that's not the end. It's not about that ultimately. It's about like the vitality of that person. It's I'm interested in photography as well. So there's Cartier-Bresson was like a well-known figure in photography, like, and he has this idea of the decisive moment. And that's a great way to think of it for drawing, because I equate like a lot of what I do to like photojournalism. Like I'm really interested in photojournalism because I see a lot of comparisons, like similarities. And the decisive moment is that moment where your ears perk up, like you're hyper aware and you just go, oh, there, that's it. So it could be like somebody just turning and looking right at you in that moment. That's like, I guess, a cliche because it's so clear. But there's something about what that stranger is doing, or those several people in the shot or whatever. I think of it kind of like a shot. It's kind of weird. It comes from the animation background, I guess. But it could be like the gesture of a hand and then the reaction to what that person is saying. It's just the way their eyes light up when somebody tells them a story in that second. You're like, that's the thing. But it's gone in a second, so you have to remember it as you're drawing because they're not holding it for you. So you have to keep that little moment in your mind as you continue to draw them, as they continue to move and have their conversation. There's this great thing that, like, my life drawing teacher from school, Ed, told me, which was, at the end of the day, nobody was over your shoulder watching you draw. So why do you have to obsess over them looking the way they do in front of you? No, like, they look through your sketchbook, they see your drawings, they don't know how accurate you were.
Right.
They don't know if that person had a backpack on or if they didn't. So for me, I tend to bend the reality as well. So I'm inspired by what's in front of me. I try to capture the feeling of what's in front of me. But if somebody's backpack is on one shoulder and, like, I think it will look better on the other, I'll just draw it on the other.
Okay.
Like, it's not necessarily, like, I'm not bound to what's I'm seeing. I'm not copying.
Right. So I mean, there's, again, it's the two things you're learning in this exercise. There's the figure drawing. So some people would look at someone sitting across from us and see something interesting about how things fit together and want to understand that.
Yeah.
So you're trying to then just interpret it in a drawing and literal translation.
Yeah.
And that's a worthwhile exercise.
Yeah.
Because it is about, connecting pieces and figuring out, but that's not what you do.
No.
You're grabbing a moment. You're an interpretive illustrator, essentially.
Yeah.
So we see it becoming, because everything's online now, so you see more people's version of this all the time.
Yeah.
There was even an ad campaign here in Toronto on the TTC this year.
Yeah.
That was all people's sketches.
Yeah.
On the bus, on the streetcar, and they vary as well. Some of them are more just like, a shot of someone's face reading a book. Some are more of a shot of the entire scene, and we kind of lump it all together.
Yeah.
Because we get told, we get told by our teachers. It sounds like you got told something different somewhere in the mix.
I guess I have a tendency to just try to see, like, if I see a pattern, I often say, well, what will be the opposite? Like, if I see everybody doing something one way, I'll say, well, what happens if we flip it? What might happen? So I just noticed that life drawing was practice. It was seen as practice for the better thing you're going to do, the bigger thing, the cool, the nice art. The life drawing was the dirty, grungy art, right? You're just kind of do, and like, it was disposable. So if you think we're drawing on newsprint in the studio, and that's because it degrades and you throw it away, like, you have this huge pad of newsprint and you're blowing through.
Well, yeah, and the exercise is to get fast, it's just to make it disposable and do as much as possible so that you break through those constricting habits.
Yeah, exactly. So I just thought to myself, well, what if the drawing in the sketchbook was the practice? Like, it was the artistic practice was drawing in the sketchbook, and the studio time was the practice so we could be better at drawing in our sketchbook, as opposed to the other way around, right?
Yeah.
So
really you're just a contrarian.
Yeah,
and,
totally. Yeah, in many ways of my life, yeah, for sure.
So you found this whole part of your life just because you were being difficult.
Yeah, oh yeah, I'm like only child, for sure.
Gotcha. So how is it impacted on your work?
I wouldn't say there's much of an impact. Like, I see them as separate.
Yeah.
So, like, my job is my job, and that's like a contained thing. and then this is a separate thing that I do. So yeah, they don't really cross over. Like I've been doing more like supervising and stuff these days, so there really isn't crossover. I mean, like in a vague sense, like it could be maybe it helps you with like drawing quicker or something like that, like doing a rough faster or something, maybe being more decisive quicker. But
so in the skills area, it's probably had an impact.
Like I'd say maybe if I were more of an animator or something, that might translate a little more, but I don't see it directly relating. No.
So what's your current job?
I'm at Nelvana and I'm supervising layout for Hotel Transylvania.
Okay, so it's a challenge often because a lot of people don't draw in their spare time when they do it for a living. Mm-hmm. That's kind of the shame of some of this.
Yeah, I think you always have to remember like why you got into it, I guess. And the fact is, like, when you're working in animation, sometimes there's jobs that aren't like as much drawing. Like let's say you're a rigger. Like if you're a rigger, you didn't go to animation school, I'm assuming, to become a rigger, but like it's a really good job. It's like in demand and everything. So there's value to that. But I think it's important to go back to the reason why you were interested in animation in the first place and keep that alive. Mm-hmm. So that has to be, in a lot of cases, through your own work. And like I know directors who still like draw and stuff like that. They don't get to draw in their day job as much as they would like, right? But it's just about deciding what's important in your life. That's what it comes down to. Beyonce has 24 hours in the day as well, and like she's baller, so I don't know. We could all just learn from Beyonce.
ESA to Max the Mutt, was that a direct thing?
Yeah, I had a teacher. I'm shouting out all my teachers.
Do it.
So Jen Lease. She was an amazing teacher that I had in grade 11 who got me onto Max the Mutt. It wasn't as well known back then, but I think it had existed for a good like 6-7 years or maybe even 10 years by then. It was just down the street from here, so Queen and Shaw. They just had animation at that time. So now they have several programs like concept art, and they have a comics program. And these are all 4 years, except the comics is, I believe, 3 years now. But it was just animation, 3 years, and I got a scholarship, actually. So she got me onto the application for the scholarship, and it was the first year they'd ever done a scholarship. So I submitted the scholarship info, and I heard back that I got it. And that was a huge leg up. But yeah, going there was really great too. Being on Queen Street for school, really cool.
That's all right.
Really cool. But I have to say, like this area of town looked very different back then. This was like. So I graduated, I guess, about 11 years ago or so. So yeah, it was. You did not go into Trinity Bellwoods. You did not know it was called Trinity Bellwoods.
That's it, right?
There was no, like, you did not know. You just knew that as the sketchiest park I am not going to walk into, lest I be murdered.
No, it was a good place to go to get mugged.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
We never came down. Even when I was, I mean, it was a long time ago for me coming down here as a teenager. Mm-hmm. But like, you got to Spadina. Mm-hmm. And you didn't go any further on Queen. And
unless
then
you were super goth.
Yeah, and then eventually it was like you get to Bathurst. It moved all the way down to there. But coming down this far was you just didn't do it.
No, you do not.
So I came to the industry day, whatever, when you graduated.
Yeah.
And I was sort of like had to come over into this part of town, and it was kind of like, really, this is interesting. This is where the school is.
Yeah.
But I remember you stood out even then because your film. I'm trying to remember now because it was
some alien thing. I barely remembered. I don't think
something
I
about like
a
farm.
Yeah, it was weird.
A farm and an alien thing, but it felt like a very contained film.
Yeah.
Like it really was a successfully complete film, and it was very flash animation.
Yeah.
Like it was very puppety for someone who draws so much. It was. I looked like that's part of the reconciliation for me in terms of like I remember that and I'm like, how is that the same person?
Yeah.
But it was like there was really strong art direction in it. Mm-hmm. There was really like you looked like you were coming out of there as a fairly complete filmmaker. which Max the Mutt didn't have a lot of that at the time. They had a lot of people with some strengths in this area and strengths in that area and strengths in
but more focused on like a certain specific job.
Yeah. And that was the thing I remember because I tried. I think I tried to recruit you. I was a recruiter for Fat Cat.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
that was it.
But I'm a Toronto kind of person.
Yeah. I used to look at that job as I'm not trying to convince people to go to Mirror Machine. I'm trying to find the ones who want to. That was the way I could kind of reconcile it for myself. But no, I remember that film, and yet it was so different from what like years later when I saw your work. It had changed so much. So coming in, so when you didn't go to Fat Cat, what did you? So coming out of school, what was the job? Do you remember?
Core.
Really?
Yes. I went to Core.
So what did you do at Core?
Core, I guess for some background, because it doesn't exist anymore. It was this big studio that at the time was one of the biggest in Toronto. And they did films in, I think they did The Wild, I think, was a film that they did. They also did TV.
They were CG.
Yeah, they did all kinds
VFX.
of stuff. Yeah, but they also did animation. They did Iggy Arbuckle was a show.
Yeah.
So I came into Core right as they were having some problems. They were, I think, doing some pitches for like different series. So it was sort of this, it was a funny job in that it was just developing some stuff for different series pitches.
Oh, really? You got right into development work?
Yeah, but it was this funny job in that it was a lot of different things. So I think I was doing a little bit of storyboarding, I was doing a little bit of design, but there were other people there, and I think we were all fairly new out of school. I think the other two I was working with had worked, I think, on the Iggy Arbuckle show, so they had some experience. They were a little older than me, but yeah, it was a cool, funny job in that it was this mishmash of all kinds of things. Like I can't even tell you what it was. I think they called it design artist because it was all kinds of weird stuff.
And you were there for a little while. How long?
Oh God, only 3 months because that is when they were like trouble time, and then. So my contract was only 3 months, and then there was no renewal. And the other guys stayed on a little bit longer, but it wasn't much longer until the whole thing went bankrupt. You can still check out Core. It's now called the Firkin on King. So if you walk through the Firkin on King, you'll go up the stairs, and like the bar is like, that was reception. And then on the right, you'll see like this little like lounge area, and that was like where I had my very first interview. But it was funny because like when I first graduated school, this was when it was the transition time when we weren't quite doing digital portfolios. So I canvassed the whole city. I went on to, you didn't have your website at that time.
No, it was right around when because I did it after I started the website because there was nowhere to post jobs.
So there was, I think I looked up some Better Business Bureau. I don't even know where I got the list of the studios, but I found some list of the studios, and I just did like printed out my artwork like in a portfolio, and then did what we call at the time, like I know the kids are not going to know what this is, but it's called a throwaway portfolio because you're literally giving it away, and they were very expensive to make. You'd have to print them and put them in a nice like folder.
I used to just make photocopies, like the throwaway.
The school Maxima had us like make it in like a nice duotang and everything.
I hate to tell you what happened to those things.
Oh, I know. They were probably like kitty litter. They put it at the bottom of the bird.
If it's nice enough duotang, we take the duotang, we put that over here, and then the throwaway gets stapled and just put in a pile until they get thrown over.
Oh, I know.
But thank you for the duotang.
It's like $1.50 or something.
And that ended up on someone's budget report or something like that.
So I canvassed every studio I could find, and at this time, like the studios explicitly do not want people to do this anymore, but at that time, I guess it was a thing. But I went in person to every single studio, and even if you're just speaking to the reception, it's still like that face-to-face thing. So it was funny. I dropped it off at Core, and then this was before like cell phones and smartphones, guys. I got home, and there was a voicemail on my landline that said, oh wow, we just got your portfolio, like can you call us back and we'll set up an interview. So it was just that was I think the last one I dropped off because I was closest to home.
Right.
And by the time I got home, there was a ways to go.
So did you work as a freelancer in general for a while? Like
yeah.
after
Yeah. So I've worked at lots of studios. I honestly cannot remember them all. It sounds weird, but I can't. So, but it's just like talking earlier about the hustle. So it's a hustle. So you're hopping around from studio to studio. I worked, I guess after that, I might have worked at, several studios, by the way, on my resume don't exist anymore. And that's very common in animation. Sometimes they'll like start a little studio that's just for one particular project and then it just doesn't exist anymore. And that's how it goes. So I worked at this place called, so there's a big downturn, right? Like when all of core got laid off and like everybody was out of work. Like it was one of those big like downswings.
Yeah.
I believe it was 2008. So that was great timing for like graduating. But there was not a lot of work. So there was this one studio that doesn't exist anymore called Providential Pictures. I
don't even know that.
Yeah, so they made this show that was like for the Christian Television Network or something.
I did some stuff for Christian Broadcast Network, CBN. That was bread and butter for a studio and all that.
Yeah. So, but this is the thing is, like, you learn that, especially in the States, there's like a large clientele for this content, and so that is a moneymaker.
Do you remember the show?
It was called, oh gosh, I remember one of the characters' names was called Goose. I don't know why. Goose or something. It was like, what was it called? There was like bears. It was this whole like, they're the animals in the woods and they're like teaching lessons of the Bible, but they're like in a village or something. But like, you've got like all these animators from core and stuff working there. It was a really weird environment.
It pays the bills, right?
It pays the bills. But then after that, I guess, where did I work? I think I worked at, now it gets a little mushy. I can't remember where, but I've worked at like Chuck Gamage in Hamilton. So he's really cool to work with, really interesting guy, and loves life drawing and loves to draw traditionally. So what's cool is he has like a whole animation table in his little office, and like a lot of their bread and butter has been commercials and things like that for years. So all those traditionally animated like cereal and stuff like that, so like Tony the Tiger and all those things, but he will actually draw like the key poses like traditionally, and that's really cool to see. But it was all harmony stuff. And I worked at where else? I worked at I've worked from home freelance before, so like Big Jump. I've done a bit of stuff for them.
Okay.
But that was all from home. I didn't relocate to Ottawa for that. I work in Havana now, but I have worked for them before for other shows. Oh gosh, I can't remember.
So it's, but that's not. I mean, some of the people who we're doing this for are coming out of school. And it's. I mean, I've had like 2 jobs that were long. Mm-hmm. Like I was at Smiley for like 5 years.
Yeah, that's long.
Yeah. Well, it's a different kind of position too.
Yeah, exactly.
But even like my first job was at Studio B way back. And I was there for about 3 years, which was a huge. I mean, I learned on the job, so it was a huge education for me. That's why I consider that my college situation. But outside of those couple of situations, it's been like a 3-month gig, a 6-month gig, maybe sometimes a year. You do see more, I think, these days, where you can kind of get, like, it's outside of, like, there's that, like, you're on a show.
Yeah.
But there are, I think, more opportunities for a more full-time,
it's
longer
so
term.
busy right now.
Yeah. You can get in and you can stay somewhere for a while in ways that you couldn't earlier on.
Yeah.
Because you're at Nelvana now.
Yeah.
You did along the way. What I kind of think is interesting as well is that you made a film with the NFB too.
I did, yeah.
So maybe you could tell us a little bit about that.
Oh yeah, I should probably tell you about that. So I did this there's this program at NFB called Hot House, and the idea is it's for emerging filmmakers from all across Canada, and they will have some sort of theme every time they run this program, and it's about once a year, I think they run it, and so you create a proposal based on the theme, and just submit it online, and if you're part of the program, you get a 3-month immersive experience working with NFB producers at the studio in Montreal, and they like to have a cross-section of people from all over Canada, and it's really, really interesting. It's because NFB is it's a bit, the perception at least is that it's hard to get into. I would debate that. I think sometimes people feel like it's this, like there's a wall and it's like only special people get to do it. I don't really see it that way, though I think they are looking for a specific type of a person that might make a film there that's more of an outer mindset.
Yeah, not everybody's a filmmaker.
No.
And I think we sometimes we kind of have a lot of pressure put on ourselves that if we're not,
mm-hmm.
you know, because there's, most people coming in animation kind of
respect and admire people who are, and,
yeah.
and maybe it's like with you, right? You're saying like you've got animation's your day job,
mm-hmm.
and that's compartmentalized, and that's great.
Yeah, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah,
really.
and you're finding your joy in your drawing,
mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you have had this experience as a filmmaker.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, again, coming out of school, you clearly had some of that ability to conceptualize in a sense, in a film. Because a film,
mm-hmm.
beginning, middle, end, completed works, tell a story,
mm-hmm.
it's its own thing.
Yeah.
So you went to Montreal for it? Because now they do it.
No, this is what's interesting is they always have, they have 2 components to every hot house. One is like a theme-based component, which I'll get into a little later, and then there's also a technological component. So part of, I think, the mandate of the hot house is to, like from NFB's perspective, like it obviously benefits the filmmaker, but in their benefit, it will be test out new ideas for the studio.
Okay.
So at that time, their technological experiment was, can we do this remotely?
Yeah.
Because that's something that they're especially interested in, because there's certain, like, I think pretty much every province and territory has an office, like an NFB office. But even if you're thinking up in the north, like it might have the office in one area, but like the north occupies like 75% of Canada's land mass, so it's pretty big. So that's the thing, is like it's not necessarily something that somebody can just go down the street and go pop into.
And especially the animation their animation department really exists in Montreal.
Yeah.
Like they have production offices all in every kind of capital of each province.
Yeah.
But it's mostly live action and
mm-hmm.
interactive in those places. So it's really important to them to be able to reach out to other artists who maybe can't be in Montreal.
Yeah, for sure.
So you were part of the first round of that? Because they do it now on a regular
I was
thing.
7.
No, but the first round of the remote ones.
Oh, of the remote. Yeah, I didn't realize it was all remote now, but
well, it's not all, but they have it.
They have experimented
I think they
again.
use it every year. That there are some that can be remote now. It's a regular thing.
Yeah. So it was the very first year they tried the remote. Like the reason why it worked so well is they actually brought us all to Montreal in the beginning, and I think we were there for a full week, I think, or maybe a little shorter. But anyway, on enough days for us to like build a relationship together, so that when you go remote and you do the Skype, you're talking to people you actually know.
Yeah.
So your brain can make that leap, and then at the very end, like for the final post-production and stuff, they had us all come back again.
Nice.
So like that, I think when you're working remote, that is key. So you because we're people, like if people need to be people together, like it can't just be this distance thing. So I think that's why it worked so well.
And I mean, and to your point, I mean, NFB, I think it's funny because like our TV industry community is so huge. NFB is such a huge part of our animation identity in Canada, and yet the two don't cross over nearly enough.
Yeah, it's so
because they are. It's intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
It's because it's not Saturday morning cartoons, and that's kind of thing. We all kind of have. I think there's an inferiority complex in terms of being TV animators and that. It's this artistic thing, and I'm not a real artist.
Yeah.
But there's always that kind of block.
That's
and I
funny.
Think, so,
that's interesting.
And yet now, I mean, I know a lot of the people there, and it does seem far more accessible now than I ever thought it was.
Yeah.
But the Hot House program is great for that.
Yeah.
And it really does. Like all kinds of people I know have done stuff. Because there aren't a lot of opportunities in Canada anymore. There used to be other funds that were for like calling card films and things like that.
Okay.
But they kind of went away in the late 90s, early 2000s. So Hot House, I think, was sort of a response to that. Because it's tough to get that, to make your first film.
Yeah. Well, especially when you don't know really, like, you're navigating blind in a way. Yeah, so that totally makes sense. And plus it's intimidating. So sometimes I think when you're intimidated, you're writing to please someone, and that's never a good place to write from.
No, probably not. And so that encouragement, like, who are your producers? Who are your people at the NFB?
It was there was Morale. So she was one of the producers. Yelena was one of the editors. She's now a producer. Yep. There was Michael Fukushima and David Varel. Was actually, I think, it was right before he retired. Yep. So for those who aren't familiar with NFB lore, David Varel is like, he has been at the studio for so long, and his father was actually like at the studio too, as a producer. So it was really cool to work with him. You got
to have a little, he was gone, I guess, a year later, right?
Yeah, I think it was, it might have been his last Hot House. Yeah. So yeah, like that was pretty much the core group that we were working with. And there was, they also have, every Hot House, they'll have some sort of a mentor.
Right.
So, like I had mentioned earlier, they often have some sort of theme. So one of the themes of ours was like, part of it was like working with sound, and so our mentor was Luigi Alamaro. So he is amazing, and he has been at the NFB for a good while. I think at the time it was, I'm just throwing a number out there, maybe it's like 5 or 8 years or something like that. He isn't like been there for like decades or something. But he's like a younger kind of guy, but he's an amazing composer. And he started out at the NFB by being this intense fan of the NFB, living in Montreal. Like, he was obsessed, and it was his dream from childhood. Like, I have to be at the NFB, and like he's a musician, like classically trained musician. So he just kept hounding them, I believe is how the story goes. Okay. So he just hounded them, and at a certain point, like, they're like, okay, just come.
So the hustle.
But like that's the hustle. Like, he did not let up. But, you know, like that said, he's also incredibly skilled. Yeah, so you have to have both.
They're not going to keep you around to be a mascot.
Yeah, like, exactly. Like, if you're not useful to anybody, like any studio, like, they're not just because you're like begging, like, oh, okay, this is awkward, maybe like go find another. But yeah, in his case, like, he's amazing. Cool. And so he was our mentor, so that meant that he did all of our soundtracks and stuff, but he also like helped us with like navigating the NFB, and like will talk story with us and stuff like that. And then the other person that we work directly with would be Yelena, and she was the editor, so everybody's editor. This is the first time I'd ever worked with an editor. Yeah. Oh my God, it's so good. Like when you're doing like a Leica, and it's like especially, like, I think I was at the time, I was in my early 20s, I guess. I don't think I was even halfway through my 20s yet. So I was fairly young and still navigating animation, and I was like, wow, like, the role the editor plays is something that had never been discussed. It was just this vague thing, because it's like when you're at the studio, the director is always working with the editor, and they just go off and do a thing together. You don't even know who they are, really. But when you're working directly with them, you realize like what they bring. Because you might think, well, what does an editor do? Because there's no live action footage. Like, what is the editor doing? Well, they're editing the Leica. The Leica, for those who don't know, is when you take the storyboard and you put it into video format and you add the audio. So this is like in animation, this is what we do. So we can basically create the film before we take the huge, incredible expense of animating every scene, right? Yeah. So that was an amazing experience, and these people are like experts at story, and like beats and like understanding like arcs and things like that. So that was all done remotely, so what we will do is do a back and forth. We'd Skype and stuff, and as she was editing, like I'd be at home like in Toronto, like doing different drawings, and I'll say, okay, give me like half an hour, I'm gonna like do a couple panels, and then I'll send them to you, and then she'll like put them in, and we'll like we had, I think they connected the audio into like the console or something, so it would like display on my screen, so I could like view it real time and stuff like that. So yeah, it worked really well, especially for like the technology was just starting too, and it was like hardly any lag, so that was pretty good.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it didn't like freeze or something, and it would do sometimes.
Yeah, we're still having trouble with Skype.
Yeah.
So you got a film under your belt, and that was sort of like mid early career.
Yeah.
Then more freelancing?
Yeah, just continuing with the freelancing, so it's all a hustle. So you'll start on you'll do like a season of something, depending on the show. Sometimes they'll have a second season, which is really great, but they'll bring you on again, potentially, or they might send it overseas for the second season. So that happens sometimes. So that happened to me a few times. So you can't always count on being hired again. But, you know, if you're doing a great job and everything, they'll like be more than happy to bring you on if something else comes up. So it's always keeping your finger in all the pots and just keeping up to date with everybody. Like I'd say for new graduates, like honestly, your greatest asset is your colleagues that you went to school with. Yeah. You will know them the rest of your life.
Everybody, see, it's funny. It's like, and everybody says this, and it's like you hear it when you're in school.
Yep.
It doesn't mean anything to you.
It means nothing.
But everybody eventually you get there, and it's like, yeah, this is every single person we interview, every single person we talk to. It's the same thing.
It is insane. It is insane. Like you will know everyone. So it's like if you're kind of like have sourpuss attitude, you're a bit of an Eeyore, you're a little grumpy. It's like, well, people are going to remember that. However, I mean, when we're in school, like we're still figuring out who we are as people. So it's not like unless you're a total mean person. I don't think that sticks necessarily. It just means if you were a bit of a sourpuss in school, you just have to like maybe be like so nice to people for the first 10 years of your career, and then like they'll forget.
A little few repairs to make along the way.
Yeah, nice. But yeah, it's so funny. Like, and honestly, like people, it's not just your class. It'll be a couple of years ahead of you, a couple of years younger than you. Because that's the thing. Sometimes I think when we're in school, it's like a holdover from high school, is we think, oh, well, those are like the babies in first year. Oh, no, those babies might be your boss.
Well, I think that's just, the older you get, the more everyone's the same age.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, there's until it becomes like, again, 10-year gaps and that kind of thing. Like but it is. You're all just peers.
Yeah, exactly. And then even when you're in the studio, like there'll be people who are 15 years older than you, and then you're friends with them. Like it's not like it is in high school.
Yeah, that's just a developmental thing.
Yeah,
we all go through that in our lives, essentially, right?
Yeah.
So do you have another film in you? Is that a goal? Is that something you want to do?
I want to make another film.
Yeah?
Yeah, for sure.
Do you have plans to make another film?
I don't have active, like, you know, I've been trying to experiment and like figure out my voice, but like I have to say, it can be like coming off of Hot House. Like that, Hot House was interesting in that I wasn't especially attached to the idea of Hot House. I didn't really know what it was, and I thought, oh, this will be fun. And then when I did it, I was like, oh my God, this is everything. So I have to say, like back to this idea of like clearing your mind and being zen about things, I think I was able to produce a nice solid pitch because my investment wasn't as emotional in it.
Okay.
But then when you're trying to come up with your second project, that's when sometimes that can be harder. So you think of bands or something, that first album, it was like great. But then you're like, well, what do I do for the second one? Okay. So like for me, it's more like trying things out, and like I've definitely developed some different pitches basically, and I've tried them out and maybe they're not as successful. So now I'm in the process of digging really deep and figuring out what do I want to say. So it's like the next level of writing and trying to just let go. Like so much of what I try to do is like in my creative life is just that letting go, and that's really one of the hardest things for anybody to do. Yeah. So
will you, at this stage, if you're making another film, is it something you're just going to do in your spare time, or are you going to look for funding, or are you going to?
Yeah, I think it's probably would be looking for funding. I'm on the fence about it. I feel like I have other things in me as well, like maybe a graphic novel or something. Yeah. You know what I mean? But like the film, like I still have to like take my time with it. I feel like not rushing is probably the way to go for me. Yeah. And let it come to me kind of, almost. Like actively like explore ideas, because you have to do the work.
Do you get worried about sort of just spinning your wheels in the idea stage forever?
Yeah. In a way, I feel like any creative person does.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's a thing that there's all the unfinished projects out there, you know. Yeah. But because you've made a film. Yeah. You've seen what it takes to get to the completion point. I think it arms you better to do it again, to finish something. Yeah. Because that's kind of like the big plague of the idea world. Yeah. You know, it's the unfinished. Yeah. I mean, everybody's got those.
And also the questioning, like the self-doubt, right? Like wondering, is this as good as I think it is? Yeah. And also asking yourself why you wrote it. So, like, what is this? Like, is it just because I'm trying to unleash some baggage I haven't dealt with, or something like that, right? Because sometimes, you can see a film and you go, ooh, like, that's really, like, just issues this person is not
therapy knowing. On the screen.
Yeah, basically, which is not really what you want. But here's the thing, though, is sometimes you have to do the circle, right? You do the circuit, and you explore ideas, and you get them out, and you have to get them out. And once they're out, you've dealt with them. And then you might come around to like that original idea and see it now in a new light. So I think there's value to that as well.
Cool. Where do you stand on the finished, not perfect?
What do you mean?
Okay, so there was a fellow named Jake Parker. He's an illustrator from the States, and he does a lot of just videos of his work and just other and for it was a few months ago, it just kind of kicked around, and it was him just showing his work and talking, and it's the notion of finished, not perfect, because we can all just work something to perfection forever. Yeah. And the notion that like get the damn thing done, and the next one will be that much better. Yeah. And like, but in the completion of it, like if you never finish something, you never have it. It's never, you know. So because there are kind of two schools. There are people who will slave over something to the point where, I mean, they'll still finish it. But there's like I always say, like instead of making a 7-minute film, make a whole bunch of 30-second films.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So the finished, not perfect thing. How does that?
Oh, that totally resonates with me. And like I think when I did Hot House, like one of the good things was to be like, since I am already production minded, like that's a lot of what you have to do in the studio. Is like it's not going to be perfect, and honestly, the audience doesn't care. In a sense they do, as in you'll have a beautiful looking film. So I don't want to diminish like the importance of something beautiful, but like the difference between making that little blade of grass like a little cleaner or something, like nobody cares. They're going to be, if they're sucked up in the story, that's what's most important really, to me at least, as a viewer. But when we were in Hot House, like we only had 3 months to do a 1-minute film, and that includes full animation design, write, absolutely everything. Like we just had a bare bones proposal, and I believe it was a while ago, but I believe we spent at least, or at the most, maybe half of the time like a month and a half, really getting that Leica and like the writing and the concept, getting that all together. And I think I animated the whole thing, like the rough animation, maybe it was like a couple of weeks. And then the clean was a week or so. And the coloring, like I remember, because I'm from Toronto and going to Montreal, they got train tickets for me. So I remember coloring the bloody thing on the train from Toronto to Montreal, going, oh my God. And like I did all-nighters, like because I had, we had to get some staff to help color at the very end because like, it was going to, it was too much to do. But it was only, maybe we had the help for a couple of days or something, just to pump that last bit out. Because I chose to classically animate like 2 human figures in a 1-minute film and animate it all in like 2 weeks. And also as somebody that, to be perfectly honest, like I'm more of do more of the backgrounds and stuff. Like I'm not, I don't self-identify as an animator, which is kind of interesting, and that's just because in the studio I've never had that as a job. Like I've done a lot of jobs in animation, but animator is not a job I've done formally except a little bit at Chuck Gamage. But I was like in between or something.
So when someone outside of the industry asks you what you do for a living, what do you say?
I work in animation.
Right?
Yeah. You have to. You can't say I'm a layout artist, and then you have to have like a conversation about what that is.
Because everyone just like we're all animators as far as the rest of the world's concerned.
Yeah, they don't know.
But I have so much respect for animators. I can't do it. I can't say.
You don't say that?
Oh God, no. I've animated on a couple things over the years, but I'm not an animator.
No, but to the layman, you don't say I'm an animator?
No.
Really?
No,
What do you
I still
say?
say I work in animation.
Oh yeah.
It's still that vague.
Yeah.
I work in animation.
Yeah.
So you draw,
Yeah,
and even I don't draw that much for this. So you draw. I'm like, well, sure.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. You can't explain it because they'll say, oh, what do you do? Oh, I work in animation. They're like, cool. So like Sheridan and Mickey Mouse, and you go, yes, exactly like Sheridan and Mickey Mouse, because like there's no point.
Yeah, I don't have a half an hour to spend on this every time.
Yeah, exactly. But then like you might talk to the odd person or you say animator, and then they like bring all this like weird like animation knowledge to you, and you're like, okay, now I can tell you what I actually do. Because they don't actually, I think the layman doesn't really want to know, and they don't like, because I find most people I encounter who aren't in animation and aren't in school for animation, so many people have this dream of being an animator, and if you tell them the business side, like they do not want to hear it. And I came to the realization that it's because it's this aspirational dream, and sometimes people have these dreams that they like it better as a dream.
They don't want to have the bubble burst.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to because it's
still
let
a
them
job.
have the little dream. Let them have, and they're like, "Is it the funnest thing? Oh my God, you must be drawing cartoons all day." I'm like, "Yes, that's exactly. It is the most fabulous."
Just lie to them.
There is nothing that's like.
So you're a liar.
Yeah,
you're
totally.
a flat out liar.
We
So
all are.
you're a cosplaying anime geek liar. I had no idea.
And a narcissist.
And a contrarian.
And a contrarian.
I had no idea. I thought this was going to be just a nice, simple talk about life drawing.
Yeah, and I love Beyonce. So anyway.
Well, but who does? That I just assumed. I assume going into any conversation.
You'd be a monster if you hate Beyonce. So anyway.
So I want to thank Tabitha for doing this with us and letting us take up a good chunk of your morning.
Of course, if you like this, subscribe to us on YouTube. Always got to ask. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, at StartoonCA. And where can we find you online?
At Tabitha Draws on Instagram.
Okay, cool. Thank you again, and we'll talk to you soon, hopefully.
Thank you.
All right, see you
Bye.
guys.